7 degrees.
7 degrees.
This is 7 degrees.
What's good? What's Gucci? We going? Welcome to the 7 Degrees podcast where we live in the liners. I'm your host Trevor, aka Travis Rich, aka the podcasting rover. And if you're new here, welcome. If you're coming back, welcome back. What we do every single show is we highlight the unknown and unlikely connections between your favorite songs and the newest releases to make sure you always have music to keep your speakers blasting. And today we have another quick 7 for y'all. That means an album review in 7 minutes to make sure you always know the newest releases to keep on your radar. But don't worry, we still have a playlist for y'all. Short link is in the description, filled with 7 songs to get you started for this album. In that playlist, you can check out songs from artists like Saint Sister, James Vincent McMorrow, Hozier, Mumford & Sons, and a couple from our featured artists today. And to go find out more information on those artists and the engineers and the producers that made it all happen, you can check out our website, 7degreespodcast.com. That will have links, interviews, press, everything to do so you get to know more about the music you listen to. One more time, that's 7degreespodcast.com, and there you can also find the show notes. So if you want to check back on something I said during this episode, you can go see it there, as there's comprehensive show notes on the website. But for our feature today, we have the 3rd studio release from Irish singer-songwriter Ciaran Lavery. With a release and even an artist that I knew nothing about beforehand, this album did not disappoint. So without further ado, let's get into the review for Sweet Decay in this week's Quick 7. Ciaran Lavery hails from Acclaim, a small village about 30 minutes southwest of Belfast, Northern Ireland, with a population of under 1,000, according to a 2001 census. Speaking of Lavery himself, Sweet Decay is his 3rd full-length studio release following a sophomore release that allowed him to garner a name for himself, winning a Northern Ireland Music Prize and contributing heavily to his 80 million Spotify streams spanning just 5 years. Before that, however, Lavery began playing and singing at 15, then headed the 7-man band Captain Kennedy for 7 years before going solo to cut back on the overall chaos. There is an Irish Post feature from 2015 in the show notes for you to learn more about Lavery, but one quote that stood out to me was when he mentioned that, quote, "When I was younger, I used to write about towns in America that I didn't know. I remember opening an atlas and looking for place names to write songs about, because American places always sounded better." With that in mind, there is a distinct Americana vibe to his music, sometimes directly reminiscent of Bruce Springsteen actually, but through his unique and airy voice, he pens an absolutely tragic story in Sweet Decay. To preface going into the actual analysis, I'm not going to talk about the instrumentation too much in this review. There's nothing terribly unique about it, and it very much functions to serve as the folky backdrop for the lyrics, filled with some strings and electric instrumentation, existing somewhere between a distinct alternative folk and a hint of heartland rock. With that being said, the main star of the entire album is without a doubt Lavery's voice, a strange tenor with a distinct raspiness and airiness, but a twang and restrained power that commands your attention. It communicates the vulnerability of a man who is undergoing a bout of depression while wrestling with a religious but internally found sin. However, the power comes through, and when the album is at its bleakest for this character, you understand just how intensely influential he can be. The opening duo of Everything Is Meant to Last and 13 set the tone for the rest of the album without fanfare. Both are fairly upbeat sounding songs that set up recurring themes like depression with the line, "Woke up in the afternoon again, where have you been?" With this, the repetition in these two songs specifically hints at these obsessive ideas, especially concerning religion and his sinning existence. He asks if Jesus knows his name, and the line, "Honest to God, listen true, I could be your grave mistake," allows him to ponder faith, existence, and his own self-worth. But Lavery starts to twist the narrative early, where you get hints this downtrodden lover might not reach the happy ending, starting in To Chicago, one of my personal favorites on this project. This is also the first moment of a few where he channels his inner Bruce Springsteen, where the melody of the chorus and the overall themes of the wind and running are reminiscent of Springsteen's song Thunder Road. More food for thought for y'all to ponder when listening to this album. These negative foreshadowings are completely realized in Bones for Blood and Wicked Teeth, the first two songs that actually sound sad and have more of a creepy vibe. He states he has had this darkness over all his fucking life, and partially conflates his paramour to Christ by offering his skin and bones for her blood, reflecting his belief that he is simply an inferior sinner. In the chorus of Wicked Teeth, he continues this and paints himself as the prey, but experiences this emotional masochism as she forces him away from this internal fear, though he visits a new pain. But he believes this blood running will allow him to become sweet, possibly his one saving grace. Beginning with Beast at My Door, the album truly does begin to take on a new gravity. In that song, I would argue the beast is actually the idea of the woman, not the woman herself, where he begins to understand that he is dependent on an affection and an expectation that can never be fully reciprocated. Following that, 2 Days in Savannah has some of the best songwriting in the entire album, with that "If I See Fire" line in the chorus bringing me to chills every time I hear it. I got chills! That restrained and breaking voice, especially with the idea that he only wants to be, quote, good enough. Kind of skimming through the last 3 tracks because I want you to listen to them yourself to truly experience the devolution of this relationship. The upbeat sentiment of Wells' Tower song beautifully contrasts the song itself, where there's an even more present shake in his voice, and this character is stuck in the snow with everything gone up in flames. Morning Bell has one of the most emotional and unique performances, where I just get this awful but relatable feeling of knowing there needs to be a change, but not knowing where to start. And finally, the title track shows the emphasis he places on the relationship rather than on her, along with the entire transition of the album, where she, this perfect being, begins taking on more of his characteristics, and they become more isolated and dependent on each other. The Sweet Decay is the decay of the self, but here it is replaced with the relationship. But that's not good, because of these maladaptive mechanisms they practice. The end result is not truly his fault, nor is it truly hers. It's just tragic. For an album and an artist I've heard nothing about prior to when I clicked the album on Spotify, I was pleasantly surprised by this album on the first go, and when I sat down to really listen to it, it provided a journey with a lot more layers than I expected, with a type of fundamental relatability that isn't cheesy but simply reflects the human desire for love, especially when you might be in a compromised mental state. Rather than any song on its own shining, this album is one that you need to listen to in its entirety, I would say. Treat this album almost like a movie and be ready for many of the feels. While I might not return to this album often, it's absolutely worth your time and your heart. I'll give it a 6.5 out of 10. And that's pretty much all I got for today's Quick 7. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you also for all of the feedback after our first Quick 7, The Weeknd's My Dear Melancholy. It seems like y'all like this episode format, so I want to be able to keep pumping out the full episodes, but also give you more of these Quick 7 so you always have that little bit of 7 degrees in your life. And so you always know what music is coming out that you need to listen to. And if you do listen to Ciaran Lavery's newest release, Sweet Decay, which I definitely suggest you do as it is an experience, you can tell us what you thought about it at our email, 7degreespodcast@gmail.com, or you can connect with us on our socials. That would be at 7degreespod, that's the number 7 degrees POD, on Facebook and Twitter. I would love to hear from y'all and start a conversation on this artist who is up and coming and definitely deserves all of the recognition. And to make sure you don't miss any Quick 7, any full 7 Degrees episode, or any content we put out, be sure to subscribe on iTunes or Google Play, your preferred podcast medium of choice. And if you like the show and want to help us out, you can leave a rating or review on that podcast medium of choice. It helps us out a lot. It just means more people will come in, which means more music to talk to, which means more episodes, which means just more music. And that's why we're here. And one final reminder to check out our website, 7degreespodcast.com. Link is in the description to check out the playlist, the full show notes, as well as every other episode we have ever done. Go check that out. I promise you won't be disappointed. But that's all I got. So thank you so much for listening. Go listen to some music. Go have a great day. And until the next time, I'm gone.